Welcome to episode 5 of the Cals Report, your insider's guide to the world of college sports leadership. I'm Will Reese, co-founder of Next Level Sports and proud Cals director since 2011. In this episode, Ryan Bradley hosts an incredible big interview featuring two dynamic leaders in college sports, Boise State's Jeramiah DIckey and Arizona State's Rossini. Together, they share their unique experience as part of the inaugural 12-team college football playoff, diving into the behind-the-scenes details of their historic season. You'll hear their takeaways, strategies to capitalize on their playoff experience, and much, much more. From leadership insights to navigating current challenges, this is a conversation you won't want to miss. Then, we're excited to launch a new segment on the Cals Report pod we're calling the Leadership Playbook. Ryan sits down with Cal's friend, speaker, author, and leadership guru, Clay Scroggins. They'll unpack themes from his best-selling book, How to Lead When You're Not in Charge, and explore ways to kickstart 2025 with clarity and purpose. Whether you're leading a team or preparing for what's next, Clay's practical wisdom will inspire and equip you. It's time to get into episode 5 of the Cals Report, where the conversation continues long after the event ends. Hello, and welcome to the Cals Report, episode 5. I'm Will Reese, Cals director, as well as co-founder and partner at Next Level Sports. So I wanted to jump on here before we get into this episode and say Happy New Year. We're glad to have you back with us. We're super excited about what we have planned for 2025 in the podcast starting off today. We're so grateful for all of the folks that have found us, have tuned in, have reached out with just encouragement and positive messages, as well as all of our guests who have been just so awesome in working with us as we get into this space, and just have felt a lot of great momentum from our Cals community, and we look forward to what's to come with that. I also want to give, of course, a huge shout out to Ryan Bradley, who has been just unbelievable in this project. He's such a pro, has done a great job with our big interviews and everything he's touched on this deal. He's been a huge part of getting this deal going and will be a big part in the future. But I also wanted to come out because I've got a big announcement to make. We're so excited to be able to announce that our 4th Cals One Day will be taking place Wednesday, June 18th in our nation's capital at GW. So DMV area, we're coming. We've got a lot of great institutions, or athletic departments in that region. But most importantly, we've got a ton of awesome Cals friends that have been with us over the years that are in that part of the country. To tell you a little bit about Cals One Day, whereas Cals is a senior level event, as well as a by invitation, you come by yourself, all that good stuff. Cals One Day is set up as a broader event for basically a whole athletic department. Administration can be involved, whether you're entry level or senior level or mid-management, whatever it is. It's really set up for everybody. And it really gives an opportunity to provide, what we like to think is the secret sauce of Cals in a regional event, one day, an opportunity just to get out and to do some wonderful professional development, networking with your people, and bring them. We've been region to region. So far, we've been from, we started in Waco and then went to Newark, and then we're in Knoxville, and we've just had amazing reviews. We have a couple hundred people, about 20 plus athletic departments have been involved in each one of those. And so we target within about 4-hour window of our host site. Super excited to be at GW with Michael Lippitz and his team. Just a great AD who's been with us at Cal several times. And he's new there. And for him just to open up and be able to host us, we're just very appreciative of that. We love the location. So if you're within that 4-hour window, come join us. We register by department. You can register anywhere from 1 to 10 spots, 11 to 20. All this information is coming your way. Or be sure to jump on our website, www.adsymposium.us, and we'll have a tab up there for one day. We'll keep you abreast of everything with that as far as registration. But anytime you have questions, please reach out if you're within that 4-hour window or further away, and you want to make a trip of it with your group and come and spend some time. We had several come from further out last year in Knoxville and bought big groups and got a lot out of it. So we're super excited about that. Of course, we have Cals October 5th through 7th in Columbus. As we on future podcasts, we'll talk more about Cals and how we work that process, how to get invited, all that great stuff. Now, with this episode, I am just blown away with our big interview. Ryan Bradley comes on, does a great job. We've got Jeramiah DIckey, our good friend from Boise State, as well as Graham Rossini from Arizona State. They were part of the first 12-team playoff, and they come and they talk about that experience from all different angles. And it's so dense and rich with great information, as well as talking about, what's going on in college athletics today and their realities at their places, as well as leadership stuff, as well as their path. I mean, just everything we love about these interviews. These guys are absolutely amazing. You won't want to miss this big interview. And then we're launching a new segment that we'll have on from time to time that we're calling the Leadership Playbook. And once again, we'll have Ryan in there, but we'll have Clay Scroggins, speaker and author, a friend of Cal's, was our Monday opening speaker. He'll come talk about, his big book, which is Leading When You're Not in Charge, as well as talk about some things to think about as we're jumping into this new year from a growth and leadership standpoint. So I'm just super pumped to have this one that we're starting off 2025 with. And like I said, we're so grateful for all of you that have found us and followed and please do all the things you're supposed to do. Like, subscribe, YouTube, all the podcast platforms we're on. But what I would love for you to do, and maybe you could take a minute if you're listening to us now, sitting at your desk or running with your phone in your hand or whatever it is, but send this episode out to a list of people. Maybe it's employees, maybe it's contacts in the business, maybe it's somebody you mentor, maybe it's a boss. Make a list, send this to them, because that's how this deal grows. And that's what we love about Cal's is it's hand to hand, it's person to person, it's personal, saying, hey, I've got a lot out of this. You're not going to want to miss it. Make sure you listen every time. So we would love if you would do all the standard podcast, like, subscribe, smash the buttons, all the good stuff. But if you would just reach out personally and say, hey, I think you would love that to somebody in this business, that's the way we love to do things, Cal. So appreciate you all listening and enjoy episode 5 of the Cal's Report.
It's time now for the big interview here on the Cal's Report podcast. I'm Ryan Bradley and excited to be joined on this episode by friends of Cal's, Jeramiah DIckey, the Director of Athletics at Boise State University, and Graham Rossini, the Director of Athletics at Arizona State University. Gentlemen, thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it. Yeah, excited to be here.
Absolutely. Excited to jump into this conversation with you guys, both of you coming on the heels of a very exciting fall semester that culminated in a trip to the first ever expanded college football playoff. So naturally, we'll start there. I want to ask you both, what did it mean for your programs and for your institutions to be a part of the inaugural 12-team college football playoff? Graham, we'll start with you.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. It was exciting to be a part of history. You know, you only get a chance to be a part of a first one time, and the inaugural 12-team format was exciting. It was exhilarating. It was incredible that it gave all these new fan bases a chance to plug in and experience a run towards a championship. And I think we've seen that in other leagues and sports across the world where you expand the playoffs. It doesn't dilute the goal or the outcome. It just gives more people a chance to participate in that magic that can happen. And I know, speaking for Sun Devil fans, we felt that as the season kept growing and progressing. And once it became a reality, once we won the Big 12 that we're headed to the CFP, it just really created a fever pitch. And I think it does two things primarily. It just showcases our program, our football program, in a way that very few moments can. And for us, second year of a new head coach and really building a new version of Sun Devil football and really solidifying a new culture for our program, it was important that we used it to show the nation what's happening here at ASU and what's going on in Sun Devil football, and showcasing incredible coaching staff, incredible young athletes. You know, while the outcome wasn't what we wanted, we competed hard, we represented our university and played great football. And then, you know, maybe more important than showcasing football is just the platform it creates for a university. You know, our game had, I think, 17 million viewers. It really puts a spotlight on the incredible work happening at Arizona State University and Phoenix and everything that's going on kind of in our part of the country. And so immeasurable value in terms of really putting our football program on a national map, creating these new conversations for us to be part of, and then showcasing our university through sport in a way that's hard to do in very many other forms.
Jeremiah, I know this wasn't Boise State's first trip to a major bowl game. You busted through that ceiling long ago, but I suspect this was a little bit different. What did it mean for your university to be a part of the first 12-team playoff?
Yeah, and Graham, well said. A lot of what he said, so I won't repeat it, but, you think about process, and, as leaders, we don't necessarily concentrate on outcome. And, this process for us started well before, this season. And when you have that level of hope, which hope is powerful, and we can monetize hope, right? In terms of the resources that I need to be able to effectively run a department. And we're big on plan the work the plan. When it comes together like that in the first year of an expanded CFP to give a school like ours, which is group of 5. I know people get upset saying that, but it is what it is. We're going to embrace it. The fact that we had a seat at that table and had the ability to compete for a national championship, it's priceless. And to be able to do that for your community, especially when my message to Bronco Nation has been, let's not live in the past. Let's define our own expectations and look to the future. And it just so happened that the CFP changes and all of a sudden we get this opportunity to really create a new memory that allows me to better serve our staff, our student athletes, and our supporters. It was a phenomenal experience, and it's something that I'm sure Graham would say the same thing. Your fans, I mean, it goes such a long way for them, and even though it didn't work, end up the way we wanted it to, and we're here to compete for championships, and so it wasn't just the experience, but going through that. Coming out of it and the momentum that we now have, it allows us to pick up speed at a different rate than maybe we've done in the past. And that's really, I really appreciate it. It makes my job a lot easier, in terms of telling our story, and we're ready to roll in 25. There is no rest. You hit the ground running, and we're ready for this 25 season.
You mentioned plan the work the plan. Talk to us a little bit about how your athletic department came together to really plan and prepare for this moment of competing on the biggest stage in college sports.
Yeah, it's obviously being the first year. It was very different from a traditional bowl experience for us, and in talking to people here, it was very different from the past Fiesta Bowls we've gone to. The experience was amazing. Fiesta Bowl, they do a phenomenal job, and Graham, your city, it was beautiful. There was sunshine. We very much enjoyed our time there, but it was challenging. You go from hosting a championship game to then the announcement of the CFP, and then you have 2 weeks essentially to get prepared, and our staff, we had started working on it. It's similar. And Graham, I know you're a baseball guy. You don't talk about the no-hitter while it's happening. And so while, the team is just concerned about 1-0, our planning and preparation started probably mid-October of what if we are ranked? What if we have this opportunity, and to start getting out in front of, with our partners, Anthony Travel and our ticket office and operations, and how we're going to ultimately communicate expectations and define our process. And it was a little different this year because of the home sites. You didn't necessarily know. So we had 2 plans going on at the same time, plus a third of if we were to just go to a bowl game. And that was a lot of work for our staff. But I also know that we were so much more prepared that once it was announced, we hit the ground running, as I said before, and we were ready for what was next. And really appreciate my team and the time, effort, and energy they put into it, because it wasn't me. I was out talking about it. They were out doing, and I'm really grateful for them.
Graham, what preparation looked like for your team?
Yeah, Ryan, very similar to what you heard from Jeremiah. And, we're the ones that get asked the questions a lot of times, but we've got an incredible team behind the scenes that makes this engine go. And, I've spent, 13 years in Major League Baseball, and the movement of a professional team is something to see, but the movement of a football team is something to behold. And when you're doing it on short notice, as Jeremiah mentioned, there's so much that goes into just the final coordination. And we're lucky we've got a lot of people in our department that have been a part of bowl games and college football for a long time. And so they can't be rattled. They're pretty, calm under pressure, and there's a lot to do. We both got that first round bye, which was critical, and so you do get the benefit of a little extra time to advance your plans and do the site visits and come back and make sure. But a lot of hard work, and really same thing. Appreciate our team for a lot of hard work over the holidays to get this team ready to move back and forth. For us, our goal for the season was to build a trend line of Sun Devil football, and we didn't really put limitations on what that would be, but we wanted to get back in a bowl conversation and make that a reality. The way that this team kind of exceeded expectations early on, we were bowl eligible by early October, thankfully, and so we wanted to make sure that we had that ability to start preparing for, we're going to be in a bowl situation, and so that really gave us a head start on identifying who would be part of a travel party, which are the donors that we want to make sure that we extend an invite to. And so thankfully, we already had some good framework in mind. And then the CFP, the Peach Bowl, did an incredible job with just sharing information and making themselves available, almost apologetically that it's not the traditional Peach Bowl experience. But Gary Stokin, the CEO, really set an incredible tone. He called it attitude of gratitude, and really delivered a first-class experience for our young athletes and everybody that was a part of the trip. And so we had great partners in the CFP and the Peach Bowl. We had a really talented team that got us organized and really needed every day and every minute between weighing the Big 12 and getting on the plane to go to Atlanta to make sure we were ready to deliver the trip.
Yeah, following up on that, Graham, I know this had to be somewhat of building the airplane while you were flying it, because there's no playbook for something like this. There's nobody you can call and say, hey, how do you do this? We're in uncharted waters here. Hopefully this won't be the last time either of your programs are participating in this new expanded playoff format. So, Graham, starting with you, what were some of the lessons learned? What were some of the unforeseen challenges? What are some of the notes that you took that along the way that you say, hey, when we're in this situation again, we're going to make sure and do this or do this differently?
Well, good analogy with the airplane, because it's hard to find big airplanes that time of year between holidays and New Year's, and so we needed a 777 to move our traveling party, 330 people or so cross country. There was a scenario where maybe we were staying home for the Fiesta Bowl, but the alternative was going to Atlanta cross country. So I think a number of notes and even give the CFP a lot of credit for asking for feedback real time, because as they get together in about a week or so after the national championship and the executive team has their after action review, they want a lot of feedback, and they want a lot of our lived experience, knowing that this is the first time going through it, to really communicate information more effectively moving forward, but also understand what tweaks and adjustments need to be made on behalf of the athletes, the coaches, et cetera. So, we did our own debrief after the trip, came away with a lot of notes in terms of how do we approach bowl planning moving forward. Should we be fortunate to be in the CFP situation, we're going to work hard to do that again. We're better prepared understanding this format, but happy to be the guinea pig and happy to try it on for size and make our information available for anyone going through the experience moving forward.
Jeremiah, what were some of the lessons learned on your campus?
Yeah, very similar. I can't say enough about the CFP and how they helped through the process. There's a learning curve to this. And so having partners like that and obviously navigating and working with our Fiesta Bowl partners, they made it that much easier for our team. I mean, the things that I took away and our team took away really was our communication and, the questions that are asked during the process and the importance of buying through the institution, and the why behind it. And then the number of people that come out of the woodwork. There are a lot of people that here are part of the process. There are also a lot of people that want to be a part of the outcome. And that was frustrating in many ways because, it caused a lot of work for our team, but I think we learned a lot through that. And how we can get out in front of those groups in the future and maybe more effectively take care of them, on the front end. The fact that it fell over the holidays, which is going to be, consistent in, as we move forward, I think that created some challenges too. Traditionally campuses start closing down. We're trying to get the, Anthony travel paid and so we can get those planes and so on and so forth and our deposits for certain things. And so none of it detrimental and very fortunate. We have great teammates in the foxhole with us that we were able to work through some of those opportunities. But I think in the future, we're going to know on the front end, and what does that look like, and have more of an understanding of the expectations, because Bronco Nation showed up, and very grateful. We sold out of our allotment, and I think that was a positive of this overall experience. Bronco Nation took over Arizona, and I was grateful for that, and that's something we can build off of.
Of course, we know the automatic qualifiers are a new and unique opportunity for Group of Five schools to be at the table, have an opportunity to compete all the way to the end for a national championship. Jeremiah, what are some of the unique challenges that a Boise State has, or any Group of Five school that's aspiring to that level of success to compete consistently on the biggest stage?
Yeah, winning is hard, and it probably goes without saying, but resources and Graham, I'm not going to speak for him, but my assumption is resources are something that is top of mind for him. It just may be different zeros for us, and that's okay. We know who we are. We understand being a Group of Five, what we're challenged with, and you got to spend money to make money. And so my job as leader of this tournament is to go out and find it. When you're going through that, it can be challenging, especially with the portal and holding on to your coaches. And then at the end of your CFP experience, the portal opens up again. And so, it was team efforts in terms of fundraising and hitting people during their holiday season. But I think that was probably and will continue to be our biggest challenge. We don't need what everyone else has. We just need more than we currently have. And that's something that I continue to message to Bronco Nation and our constituents. We can do everything. We're going to find a way. We have a history of success. We're a full game every year. We're on 26 straight years of one season. And so that has become the consultant. But we're also our resource. We have to develop the work we do and the support we provide. The cost of doing business has gone up. And if we want to be consistent in this new age of college athletics, we got to go out and do and find more. And that's something that we continue to work on.
Graham, you're over a year in the role, 2 years working with a new football coach, building this program, getting it in position for the success. What does that process look like of working alongside a young head coach to build a program and position it for an opportunity like this one?
Well, Coach Dillingham really just set a new tone for our fan base, for the direction of our program. November of 2022, when he was hired, he called it Activate the Valley. And his message resonated so well because it was so genuine. And, he's born and raised in Phoenix. He's an ASU alum. He's had this meteoric rise in the coaching profession as this really bright offensive mind. But what I've really enjoyed working with him the most is just the culture that he creates around him. And yes, he's young, but he's mature beyond his age, and he really understands the value in surrounding himself with great people. And so really his goal out the gate was to build an incredible coaching staff that rounds out the attributes that he didn't possess as a young head coach, and being secure and self-aware to know what he needed to build around him in terms of football acumen, lived experience, different parts of the game that he wanted to really bring into his program. But then more importantly, signal that ASU needs to be a destination. And for a 34-year-old or 32-year-old at the time head coach to say, this is my dream job and this is where I want to be forevermore, really resonated and connected with the ASU community here in Phoenix and beyond. And it was the first time I can think of, and probably in the history of our program, we've had an alum leading our football program and somebody saying, I want my best coaching years to happen here at ASU, and have, one day have a statue next to Coach Frank Kush here at Mountain America Stadium. And so that really was the starting point for this journey that we've been on. Like Coach Dillingham, I'm an alum as well, and spent 8 years with our baseball program. My wife played volleyball here. We're lifelong Sun Devils, and this place really, really matters to our family. And we've got 9 head coaches who are alums. We've got a number of people tied to ASU that have come through this environment. And I think what was most important to say, CFP's been a dream. It's been a dream since the beginning of it. We didn't get a chance to participate in the BCS. Boise State built a national brand of football through the BCS and these other New Year's Six Bowls. We haven't done that yet. And we really wanted to bring our fan base and community together. And that starts with the head coach. And that starts with really building a new culture and electricity around your football program. And he's done that more in the 2 years that he's been on campus. And so I got promoted, about 7-8 months ago at this point, and had a relationship with coach in my previous role here in athletics, but it obviously changes when you become the athletic director. And my responsibility, I try to simplify it into two ways. It's to advocate for all of our head coaches, certainly, and in this instance, our football program, and help remove obstacles along the way that present themselves, and be a problem solver, be a confidant, be a great teammate, and his ability to grow the resources and the connections and the ideas that help our football program compete at a high level. And so I know this much. I'll never outwork the guy. I'll never bring more energy than he brings to the table. He's the Energizer Bunny. He's remarkably consistent and really just the right coach for our university at this exact moment.
Forgive me for the Sabanism, but they just
Yeah, but we've talked a lot about we'll never sneak up on people the way that we did this year, and so we've kind of arrived at this national conversation. We've put in a lot of hard work in order to get there, and we're fully convicted and committed in our ability to stay relevant nationally, and that's going to come with a lot of hard work. That's going to come with new pressure and new expectations, but we welcome it. And I would hope anybody in this industry, I'm still relatively new to collegiate athletics, but my sense is you have a lot of really highly competitive people in the chairs like Jeremiah and I sit in and throughout all aspects of an athletic department where you've got competitors, and we certainly do here at ASU. And so we want to compete every single day to use the outcomes that have happened to open up that next door of opportunity in every way that we need to. And I think we're very fortunate to be in a situation where we now have alignment throughout ASU from President Crow through all levels of ASU leadership. So we've got an awareness on what football and athletics can do to help illuminate a university, but we've also got alignment and the ability for us to make decisions and drive outcomes and fight for the resources that allow us to be competitive at the highest level. Hiring and retaining great coaches, recruiting the best athletes in the world, using all the attributes that we have as a research university in the 5th largest city in America. Those are all very helpful factors. But again, I think the X factor is going to be a group of people who are passionate about doing the work here at ASU. We talk a lot about people, passion, and place. And that's been a missing ingredient here for quite some time, where you've had people that use ASU as a stepping stone. And it was get good here, and then I'm going to go and bring my career to new heights elsewhere. We're starting to change that narrative a little bit. As I mentioned, having so many alums as head coaches through all levels of our department, we want ASU to be the destination for people that have come through this experience as students and athletes, for coaches who are getting a chance to return, and then other people that see what's happening here and want to be a part of it. And so I think a combination of all those things are what are going to give us at least the puncher's chance of staying relevant at a national level. And then it's on us collectively within the department, and certainly me in a leadership position, to help fight every single day to make sure that we can stay here.
Jeremiah, how are you planning to leverage and sustain success in Boise?
Yeah, a lot of our process started prior to this season. At some point, the work being done off the field was going to match what was being done on it. And to see it come together like it did this year, I couldn't have planned it any more perfectly. And it was a lot less me. It was more our team and just how they embraced, this next iteration of college athletics and where we're headed. We had a lot of things hit at the same time, putting shovel in ground on a north end zone facility, the conference realignment, which I'm sure we'll get to. You plan the work the plan. And so a lot of our work was done in previous off seasons as we built the infrastructure around sustainability, that when we did, get to this level in the CFP, that we could much easier or easily take the next step as a program. And so to create the assets, to continue to pour into our people are our greatest asset, and then continue to develop the infrastructure around our department that will create those revenue streams that will allow us to fund a sustainable model. It started many months ago, if not years, and we're seeing the fruits of our labor. From the highest we've ever fundraised to selling out 7 games, to selling out our allotment to selling out season tickets in basketball. You're seeing it domino into other sports. The 21 straight soccer matches sold out, averaging over 1,000 plus at volleyball. For us, those are big numbers, and it takes a team, and we're going to continue, to really emphasize, the staff, the student athlete, and the fan experience. And I think, for us, and hearing Graham talk about his coach, it reminds me a lot of Spencer. You're seeing this change in college athletics, and I'm never going to be able to outwork Spencer or I come close, but not there yet of matching his energy. It takes a team, and to have a guy like that in your foxhole that's willing to do whatever it takes, not just for his own program, but for the overall community and department that we serve, you can do epic, and that's the goal.
We've kind of danced around the major issues affecting college athletics. To this point in our conversation, I want to dive in a little bit deeper with conference realignment, the transfer portal, NIL, revenue sharing discussions ongoing. How do you all manage the uncertainty and the ambiguity around the future of college athletics while keeping your departments focused on the present and on what it takes to be competitive in the here and now? Jeremiah?
Yeah, it's something that I'm challenged with every day. As a leader, I feel it's my duty and responsibility to take on, the uncontrollables, and there's a lot in our industry right now. And so my message to my team and department, and even Bronco Nation for that matter, is let me worry about that. Let's continue to control what we can, which is to buy your season tickets, to renew, to show up to whatever game that we're promoting, to continue to support the collective and soon to be Bronco Pro in terms of our revenue generation and sharing model. There are things that on a daily basis that Graham and I and other ADs have to deal with that I don't have all the answers, but I got to stand in the gap and be able to take on that uncomfortableness for the sake of my team. I don't want them worrying about what they can't control. And there's a lot, I think that was probably the hardest transition for me as coming from a deputy AD to an athletic director was, living with that level of uncomfortableness that I had no idea the AD above me was living on a daily basis. I got to go home. I got to leave work at the office. Didn't mean I didn't care. But now it's a 24/7 cycle. And I'm not sure people fully understand the barbed wire that Graham and I sit on a daily basis, that every decision hurts. Every decision is uncomfortable. And, as a servant leader, I think my job is like I said, to stand in that gap and relieve that pressure from my team so they can go do their jobs at the highest of levels. And hopefully, in the meantime, Graham and I and other ADs and commissioners figure out solutions to some of the challenges.
Graham, how have you, what kind of leadership tactics have you utilized in order to try to manage all of the unknown and keep your team focused?
Yeah, I think Jeremiah nailed it. We were kind of professional problem solvers in a role like this, and we've got to be mindful on access to information. And I would assume for Jeremiah, but our days are basically one giant conversation, and the people and the context are changing, but we're seek to understand throughout the day to get information on, hey, how are you approaching a similar situation? We're all in the business of leading young people in the jobs that we're in, and the context and the environment may be different, but the purpose of the job has not changed. We're trying to advance young people through the setting. Education matters. Obviously, we want them to have championship aspirations, and we prioritize those things, but we've got to be finding information that allows us to make the best possible decision, because oftentimes the buck's going to stop with us. And, since I've come back here, I've gotten promoted a few times, and would agree with that sentiment is until you're in the chair, you don't fully understand what it's like to be the one like, oh yeah, it's our decision to make. Like we're the ones that are making the call and advancing that. And so I think a key to success for me is just to try to be present as possible. And that means, at events, in conversations where you're not distracted, you're not trying to do three things at once, that you're, be where your feet are, as they say, but be present in the conversation and make decisions based on the best information available at that time. And knowing that we may need to be agile. We need to be fluid and mindful that a decision may not be the decision forever, but if it's the best decision that we can make for today, we've got to be convicted when it comes to that point. And I've been lucky in the Big 12. I know we'll talk about our conference experiences here a little bit later, but early on, Kirby Hocutt from Texas Tech said something that I've really taken to heart and appreciated. He said, you're going to get pressure to make a decision in a job like this. There's going to be, from all angles of the world, people are expecting you to make a decision, to make it quickly. And he said, I found in my experience, it's more important to make the right decision. And so when you feel convicted and when you feel ready, make that decision with conviction and don't look back, and be mindful that you may need to adjust and adapt to the environment as it goes forward. But the right decision is often going to be better than a quick decision. And I think that's been really helpful feedback, at least as a young AD.
It's really good. All right. I want to jump into the conference affiliation piece. Both of your institutions have made the decision to make a move in that regard. Graham, you're a little bit farther along in this process than Jeremiah is. And so we'll start with you. Talk to us about the decision at Arizona State to make the move to the Big 12. What was your role like in that process? And again, what have been the challenges and opportunities of making that transition?
It was a very quick decision, and it came about in maybe a matter of 48 hours as the Pac-12 was trying to finalize a new path forward on a television agreement. And it seemed like there was a path forward, and then overnight things changed. And basically within a Thursday night to a Friday night, we thought the Pac-12 had been saved and was secure. And then less than 24 hours later, we're announcing that we're joining the Big 12. And so it came about quickly. I was a senior associate AD at the time, so didn't really play a role in that one way or the other. But then quickly got tossed into the deep end on our transition planning, knowing that there's a lot of work to do, and a lot of work to do in a short amount of time when we knew the Pac-10, Pac-12 for 40 plus years. That's the conference I knew. When I was on our baseball team, that was the conference I was a part of. And so it was kind of mentally, you gotta put to bed the emotional connection to the world that you knew and be very mindful of where we're going and that there's a lot of work to get done quickly. And so obviously, Jeremiah, whatever we can do is you're navigating all these dynamics, we're happy to do that. But I think what helped us the most is that there were 4 schools that had joined the Big 12 right before we did. And so getting a chance to really pick each of their brain along the process on, hey, what's different now that you're in the conference? What did you anticipate that's different now that you're living in that known reality? And then the Big 12 conference did a wonderful job helping acclimate us and share information and get us prepared. And we've been in the conference for less than a year now. Officially, it feels like it's been a lifetime because we were welcomed with open arms and really resourced and set up for success. And we're seeing a lot of benefits of it. I think there was a lot of uncertainty on what conference realignment would look like. I can tell you from our standpoint, we're in a great match in the Big 12. We've got a national footprint. We've got incredible presence in Texas, which is important for all of our institutions. Certainly it is for ASU, where our number 3 state for enrollment is the state of Texas. And so being in that state to compete, being on that state and TV is enormously valuable, as is Florida with UCF there in Orlando. So we're in it now. And although it's been a short amount of time, it feels like it's been a lifetime.
Yeah, so one door closes and another door opens, Jeremiah. So if you believe what you read, Boise State's been a part of these conference affiliation conversations, courting for quite some time. So I think the question a lot of us have been asking is, why now? Why is this the right opportunity for Boise State to go ahead and make the leap? How did that discussion and decision unfold on your campus, and what are you guys doing now to prepare for that next step?
Yeah, all good questions. Why now? I get that a lot. One, it did not happen, in the time frame that Graham, in Arizona State had for us. But it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was months or years. But what I will say is, from the time that I arrived at Boise State, my job is to do what's in the best interest of my institution and to best position us. And I firmly believe movement creates opportunity. And when I look at, conference realignment isn't new. I know it seems like it's happening more and more, but we've been dealing with this since I arrived in the industry, and it started much, earlier than that from as a kid watching the Southwest Conference. And, so this has been pretty consistent. Ultimately, you take the information you have, and my job as a leader is to, make the best decision possible. And there's risk reward. And if I feel the reward outweighs the risk, and I operate in a ready, aim, fire mentality, I'm going to make that decision. This is the hand we've been dealt, and we have to better our situation And ultimately that means more resources, whether it's recruiting territory, aligning with like institutions that have the level of competitive excellence that we want to be a part of. The PAC has tremendous history and understanding. It doesn't look what it used to look like. And there's still a tremendous amount of value for Boise State and for our people and the number of people that have moved into our state over the last 5 years. And we've seen the fruits of our labor, even though we're a year and a half plus from actually joining. We've seen the sellouts. We've seen the level of interest and the pipeline that we've been able to develop with people that maybe didn't go to Boise State, that are within our community. That's worth its weight in gold for me. I should say for us, as we continue to try to create opportunities for the resources that we need to compete at the highest level. And so, time will tell. I'm learning every decision I make. If I can get 60% there, then I'm probably in a pretty good position. In where I see the value and the strengths of those decisions. And I can't tell you how everything's going to work out. We still have a lot of work ahead of us in terms of what other team or teams are potentially going to get added, what our media rights deal looks like. I mean, there are a lot of moving pieces to this, but it's been really cool from just an experience standpoint and being a part of those conversations, having a seat at that table and really navigating, aligned with those like institutions I spoke about, to create something that maybe hasn't existed before, and really appreciative of the PAC and how they've approached it, and Teresa and the leadership that she's provided. It's an uncomfortable time, and we have a lot of balls in the air. Everything seems to be a priority, and then you go through a realignment, during the start of this season. But I've seen a lot of value coming out of that so far, and I'm excited about our future.
Yeah. So it seems like you're constantly faced with these really big decisions, these transformational changes in college athletics. As you're doing that, whether it's conference affiliation or, hey, we need to change our priorities from a fundraising standpoint and where the money is going, the revenue share piece, how are you engaging with your key stakeholders, your university leadership, your alumni, your donors, and keeping them advised on the decisions that you're making, how they're going to impact the institutions, the role that those stakeholders play in that process, keeping them abreast of all these rapid changes and getting the buy-in that you need in order to move forward? What does that communication and engagement piece look like when you're working with those folks, Jeremiah?
One, it's constant, it's consistent, and it's 24/7. Communication is important to us, and it's not just over communicating, clearly communicating. There are a lot of moving pieces. A lot of times we don't necessarily fully understand what's going on. So you can imagine how your fan base feels, or your alums, or your student athletes. And so we have a plan and a process internally. What goes to staff versus what goes to campus versus what goes to Bronco Nation in general. And we utilize every possible medium that we have, from social media, which I'm really active on social media. That's been a great resource for me to connect with the masses, to email, we did this summer a VIP session that we actually took from our friend Chad at Oklahoma State, who I think highly of, and brought our most important donors in and said, look, this is the process. This is the plan. We're going to work this plan. What questions do you have? That we can ultimately provide those answers. And a lot of good information comes from that then we're allowed we're able to share with our constituents. It's important in alignment, that everyone understands what we're doing and why we're doing it. And in the process, not forgetting our why in general, which Graham spoke of earlier. It's still to prepare our student athletes for life and to serve them. And so there are a lot of moving pieces to that as we navigate, the industry, and it seems to change daily, which means we have to be on top of it as athletic directors. And I don't want to leave anything to an assumption. I would rather face it head on, even if it means that I get in front of the media and say, I have no idea. I have to figure it out and give me some time, but I promise I'm coming back to you with what I feel is going to happen. And I think that honesty and authenticity and transparency has really paid dividends for us, that there is a different level of connection between, our office, our department, my position, and Bronco Nation.
It's good. Graham, what does that communication strategy look like for you?
Yeah, a lot of the same. Not surprisingly, kind of given the similarities in approach here. I would say, knowing that the Cal's audience is the audience of the conversation here, that it is constant communication and it is going to be nonstop. What I've found to be really helpful is understanding that bad news is going to happen, and I want to know the bad news from the source. And it's fun to share the good news, but oftentimes our responsibility is to share the uncertainty or the challenging news that needs to go elsewhere, whether that's managing internally within the university, whether that's out to a fan base, donor base, et cetera. And, getting good at a tough conversation is a really important communication skill for those who want to be athletic directors moving forward. And so I think you just got to take it as it comes. But as Jeremiah mentioned, clarity, consistency, transparency, accountability are all really key attributes in how you communicate in a job like ours.
All right, you mentioned Cal's, Graham. Let's go there. This is the Cal's Report after all. Both of you have been involved with Cal's for a number of years. Graham, we'll start with you. I think you started coming to Cal's almost immediately after getting into that role at ASU. How has the experience shaped your network and influenced your career and made a positive impact on your career development?
Well, it's a weekend I look forward to every year, and circle those dates as soon as Will shares us, when we're going and where we're going. Make sure to protect those dates on my calendar. And I really found tremendous value as a young administrator, in 2021 when I came back to college sports, of just really trying to get caught up. I spent 8 years in our department, and so I had a version of what collegiate administration was going to be, but obviously the landscape is so different 13 years later in the time I was gone. So Cal's for me has been an incredible way just to get a current sense of what's going on in our sport, but more importantly to build relationships and rapport with people at all levels of it. And I can't think of a better 72 hours spent than being around people that want to collectively be a part of where college sports is going moving forward. And the environment now more than ever is so dynamic and so ever changing that it's important that we do protect time to be able to think and strategize and compare notes and build relationships, because we're the ones that have to figure it out. I think collectively as athletic directors, for those of you that attend Cal's and that are a part of these settings, we're the ones that the world's counting on to get this stable and get this in a good trajectory. And we need time together. And Will and the team at Next Level do an incredible job of kind of bringing us together in the spirit of advancing for our industry, but more importantly, finding that time to enrich and invest in our individual journeys. And so I'm just super thankful for it. I've gotten so much out of just the relationships and the access. And I look back on my notes from Cal's in Nashville, the first one I went to, all the time. And, people like Ross Bjork, Troy Dannon, the two that I remember a lot of notes from those two in year one. And I look back on often, and they were right. And there's a lot of things that, I still take with me to this day that I remember listening to many years ago at this point.
Jeremiah, you came up in the Cal's community, so tell me about the impact that it's had on your career and some of the things you remember from Cal's along the way.
Yeah, from a personal standpoint, some of my best friends in this industry I met through Cal's, and I can't thank Will and enough for him and the vision that he had, and I know other ADs were a part of it, but it came on at the perfect time in my career where I really needed that professional development and those connections to that network, not just selfishly as I was striving to become an athletic director, but just from a learning standpoint. I took so much away from those sessions that first year. I remember Ren, got me in last minute and I didn't really know anybody and he really took me under his wing, and I got to meet you and really have appreciated our friendship. And it goes a long way. I think we're all challenged with some of the same problems. But as Graham said, like, these are opportunities. We have a seat at the table now to truly impact the trajectory of our industry. And 10 years from now, hopefully it doesn't take that long, Graham, but 10 years from now, we'll look back and say, man, remember when? And to have that community that we have with an organization like Cal's and people like Will that are just here to serve. It's priceless to me as an administrator and someone who's continuing to learn, this job and that transition from, when I first arrived there I was a senior associate to then a deputy AD to now the chair. And I get just as much, if not more value now as an AD going to Cal's than I did when I was a senior associate. Because then I get to talk to guys like Graham and Ross and all the, Mac and Hunter and all the great ADs that are out there. What you realize is everyone's challenged with the same thing. It may be different zeros, but the grass isn't greener. And sometimes when you have that unity and you can connect with people that way, it relieves pressure, because one of the things I've learned in this chair is that it's lonely at the top. When you're expected to know the answers and everyone's looking at you and you have to handle that level of uncomfortableness and the expectations that come with the job, which we sign up for. I'm not complaining about it. There are many nights I sit in this office and I reach out to someone that I've met at Cal's to say, hey, I just wanted to check in. I'm challenged with this, or just someone to talk to. And that means a lot to me.
I want to ask you both a couple of questions about your unique career paths before we get you out of here. Graham, we're going to start with you. I know you're working at your alma mater, but you spent more than a decade in Major League Baseball. How did that experience prepare you for the challenges of leading a college athletic department?
Yeah, there's so much I'm thankful for, both working in the sport of baseball, but specifically the Diamondbacks as an organization. And there's so much that's applicable in a place like ASU at this exact moment in time. And I think it all stems from just the awareness of there's a lot to it, right? And baseball, there's a lot. There's 162 games, 81 at home. We had spring training here in Phoenix, so we added another 31 games onto the schedule. So we're producing almost 200 events over the course of a season in the sport of baseball. And it's concentrated from maybe mid-February when spring training starts through Halloween and the World Series. So it's a very intense period, but college sports is a lot of the same. We get going in August with soccer, then football and volleyball, and we'll wind down in the springtime with track and field, baseball, softball. And so being able to play the long game and really stretch out energy over the course of a long year, I think has been very applicable. And I think Major League Baseball does a really good job of putting the onus on the clubs at a local level to go drive your upside. And there are certainly league revenues and central support, but the most successful baseball clubs in MLB are the ones that are really grinding it out at a local level. And so for us, that means focusing on a fan experience, focusing on everything we do on a daily basis to control our opportunity at ASU and Phoenix at this exact time. And it's helpful when you're in the Big 12, and it's helpful when you get NCAA distributions. But I think what separates us moving forward is our ability to connect to our fan base locally and be able to create our own upside, open up that next opportunity, connection, resource, et cetera, because we're in such an incredible place to live and there's endless opportunity around us. And so I think time in baseball, fan first mindset, really focusing on the team that produces a busy year and make sure that you're maximizing all those opportunities couldn't have been any better training for what I'm doing in the seat I'm in here at ASU.
Jeremiah, you and I both had the good fortune of learning under the tutelage of Mac Rhodes. You through many more tenures than I had, but as you look back on your career experience and the different opportunities that you had and the people that you got to work for and alongside, what were the most transformational experiences or influencers that helped you ascend to the role that you're in today?
Yeah, it obviously Mac. First and foremost, he saw something in me maybe that I didn't see in myself. And from when I first met Mac, he was probably an associate AD. And to see his transformation from an associate AD to who I consider one of the best ADs in the country, and to be along for that ride and in that process and in the learning curve that he had. He was always very open with me in terms of the challenges and some of the opportunities that he was navigating. And that's priceless, right? Like, as a young administrator who had this dream of becoming an AD, and to be around someone like that, who then introduces me to a 100-year check, and how he led, which was, everyone has a different type of leadership style, but to learn from two guys like that, are now doing it at the highest level. I'm so grateful for my path. And sometimes when you're going through it, you don't realize the the continued education you're receiving. It's about you, it's about your next step, about your resume. And then I look back, and every decision I make today, I think about something that happened at UTEP, at Akron, at Houston, at Baylor. And I think about Mac, I think about Hunter, I think about Bob Stoll and Lisa Campos and Ren Baker when he was the deputy at Memphis, and just some of those relationships that you develop along the way. Even though when you're going through it, sometimes I'm like, well, I shouldn't have done that, but everything happens for a reason. And there was definitely a plan and a process that was in God's hands that led to this moment. And I could never thank Mac and Hunter specifically enough, for how they poured into me, how they cared about me, and how they led, because it's made me who I am. And I'm really grateful.
I'm tempted to stop here and do a segment on the maturation of Mac Rowe's wardrobe choices over time, but unfortunately, we don't have time to get into that today. Grant,
I will offer. We had the pleasure. Baylor was here over the weekend. We had a doubleheader, women's and men's, and Mac was looking dapper as always. No surprise there.
He never disappoints. Never disappoints.
Never disappoints.
Unfortunately, did not pick up on all of those style tips that Mac had given him through all the years.
I think I'm about the age where it really started to change for him. And, Hunter and I have talked about it. I'm not sure. I feel like it was when he was at Houston and he was going to Memphis and he found Elvis's tailor or whatever. And he started bringing these clothes back, and we used to just sit there and like, what is he doing? And, but it's his own style, you got to appreciate and respect. Yep. He wears it with pride and confidence, and I love him for it, but I'm not sure I could pull that off. Graham maybe, but I don't think I can, man. I'm not that.
There's two things I look forward to. We're together in the Big 12 a lot, and I always looking forward to a hug from Mac. I got a big one this weekend. He's warm and genuine, and Jeremiah, I can't imagine what it would have been like to work for him and learn from him, but he's been incredibly generous with his time and energy. And then whatever shirt he's wearing to a Big 12 meeting is usually a topic of conversation amongst the room. So the two highlights of Big 12 meetings, Mac Rhodes is front and center on that.
He's the best, and he didn't disappoint at Cal's this year in Northwest Arkansas. So always look forward to spending time with him and seeing what he brings to the table in that regard. All right, we're almost out of time. So thinking about the Cal's audience, I want to get you guys out of here on this. If you could give one piece of advice to an aspiring athletic administrator, maybe somebody who's coming up in the industry right now, somebody who hopes to sit in a chair one day, what would it be?
Yeah, I would say patience and grace with yourself, that everything has purpose. And, as much as I tried to rush the process to get to this chair, I'm grateful I didn't get to it any sooner. And, because I'm not sure I'd be sitting here today. And, and then grace with yourself. This job is hard. It's challenging, and your path, what you're required to do, and the level of commitment that it takes, how it impacts your family, how it impacts your personal relationships, and not doom and gloom by any means. I love what I do. I'm not sure what else I would do, and so I'm very grateful for it, but I wish I would have had more grace with myself. I put a lot of pressure early on that, cause you want, we're competitors, right? You want to be the best and you want to get to the chair, and I wish I would have had more grace, and maybe enjoyed the ride a little bit more along the way, because, ultimately, for me, my faith is important to me, and his will was going to be done regardless. And I probably should have not tried to control as much of that process as I did. So
it's really good. Graham?
Yeah, I mean, that's really spot on. Patience with yourself, and the ability to probably play the long game. I think I don't know that becoming an athletic director was ever a specific aspiration of mine, but I did want to lead, and I wanted to lead something that was really important to me. And prior to coming back to ASU in 21, had been tied to a baseball team since I was 4 years old. So that's the world that I knew. And so I think my advice would be twofold. Dominate the job you're in. The best way to earn your next opportunity is by being the best you can at whatever job you're there to do today. And so if you are an associate AD and you're getting your foot established in fundraising or external or whatever the discipline may be, just be the best at it and seek out information and be curious and find people that help you round out the parts of your job that you want to get better at. And, so that comes with a self-awareness that becomes really important. But then at some point, I do think you got to let the game come to you, and you've got to be, patient, but also very, very mindful of finding fit. And you could create an outcome that may not be the right fit, and you may not be in alignment with the search firm making the hire or the president or chancellor, and then maybe you're not set up for success. And so by really being aware of your journey and aware of what's going to be the right fit for you environmentally, alignment-wise, et cetera, I think that becomes really important when you do get a chance to sit in the role of an AD, that you want to feel like you can be your genuine self, and somebody has hired you to be your genuine self, and that you weren't putting on a facade to go earn the trust or confidence in order to get the job. If that happens, you get the job, you may not be set up for success in terms of, acting on your true convictions and your true values, or that of the institution that you're there to serve. So let the game come to you. I had a coach one time say, it's not where you're going, it's who you're bringing. And I think that's really important advice in terms of the people around you, at a peer level, at a leadership level, in an environment. It's got to be the right fit. So, leave yourself that grace and patience, as Jeremiah mentioned. Be self-aware and understand where you need to round out your skill set. And then once you find the right fit, go and get it and never look back.
It's great stuff. Gentlemen, I can't thank you both enough for the time. Appreciate your longstanding support of cows and the cows community. Congrats again on all the success in the fall and with your football programs. Best of luck this spring, and we look forward to visiting with you more down the road.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan. Great to be with you.
It's time now for a new segment here on the Cows Report. We're calling it the Leadership Playbook, and I'm pleased to be joined by my good friend Clay Scroggins. Clay, thanks for joining us. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Ryan. From the time we're recording, this is Friday afternoon, so work week's wrapping up. Big Saturday planned. I'm sure you got a bunch of Little League basketball. I know we do. At our house.
Never a dull moment between what's going on campus and what's going on with the kids. So
that's right. It's a lot.
Excited to dive into this conversation with you today. Want to tell our audience a little bit more about you. Clay is an accomplished author, speaker, and leadership consultant with more than 20 years of experience in organizational leadership. Clay, why don't you fill in the gaps for our audience? Tell us a little bit more about you and your background and what it is that gets you up and out of bed every morning.
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm a longtime listener, first-time caller on the Cows Report. So it's great to be with you all, but great to be with you, Ryan, specifically. But I grew up in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, so grew up around sports. A lot of they do other things in Tuscaloosa than play football, but that is primarily what they do. I went to Georgia Tech to study engineering, quickly realized that is not what I need to be doing. I made a deal. I tried to make a deal with the registrar. I couldn't pass physics 2, and I eventually did pass it. Third time's a charm. But I said, hey, I'm never going to use this degree if you'll consider giving it to me. Meaning I will never stand on the authority of being any kind of engineer from Georgia Tech. And I certainly have not. I was, at that time, I was headed to graduate school in Dallas, Texas, which is where I did a couple of degrees there at Dallas Theological Seminary. I was there to study theology. Ended up meeting a girl and spent more time studying her. Hey, we dated, got married, moved to Atlanta, which is where we've lived the last 20 years or so. We've got 5 kids. Our oldest is about to turn 60. She's about to start driving. It feels like a big deal. Our youngest is in first grade. He's 7. We got 3 boys, 2 girls. I worked for about 20 years in Atlanta as a pastor at a local church here. It's a one of the larger churches. It's got multiple locations, so it kind of operates a little bit like franchise model organization. So I worked at different locations and ended up writing a couple of books on leadership. Never intended to be a leadership author, but because I was working at this church, there was a pretty good relationship with a publishing company. Ended up publishing the book called How to Lead When You're Not in Charge that has had some moderate success. The other 2 books have not done near as well as that one, but ended up turning that into really a speaking business. I do a lot of corporate speaking, mostly around the topic of leading without authority. I do some on becoming an emotionally healthy leader and and a sundry of other topics. But that's what gets me out of bed every morning, is I feel really passionate about helping humans grow, helping people grow. I didn't realize that when you're working at a church, that's essentially what you're doing, is you're trying to create programs, create systems, create habits, or help people create habits that are going to help them grow in life to accomplish the goals that they have for themselves. And so now I get to do that I consider it kind of a one-to-many environment. It's usually standing on a stage, talking to audiences, and really enjoy it. Love getting to do it.
Yeah, and you have not only been a good friend to me, you've been a great resource for me in many of those areas that you touched on. You've worked with my leadership team at Alabama. I know you've spent time with several of our athletic teams here on campus and done the same on other campuses. What is it about working in sports or working with sports teams, student athletes, coaches, administrators that you enjoy so much?
Well, for one, sports are just wildly entertaining. I think the simplicity of the winning and the losing, right? I mean, in life's so different because you never really know. Am I winning? Am I losing? There's not a clear scoreboard. It's hard to know what this is really all about. But sports is a little bit different because particularly I particularly love team sports. I play a lot of golf, which is mostly individual sport. But the team sport concept, you just know when you're winning and you know when you're losing because there's a clear scoreboard. But it really does we have to rely on each other. We've got to learn from each other. We've got to work with people that we don't really like, work with people that we may never have chosen to be around. So it's just got, it's just chock full of life principles. You're right. I've done a pretty good bit with different sports teams. That I'll tell you the most impressive, getting to speak to the gymnastics team at the University of Alabama has been one of the most thrilling because they are so locked in. I mean, I don't know that I've spoken in front of a lot of different audiences. I don't know that I have ever spoken in front of an audience that was as locked in as those competitors on the gymnastics floor. They were a remarkable group of people. But yeah, certainly absolutely love sports. And it's one of the things I love about Cals. I mean, getting to be around the Cals world is just thrilling for me because I consider myself a fan more than anything else.
Yeah, we've invited you to come and be a part of our Cals 360 events for the last few years in Atlanta, where we spend about a day and a half with deputy ADs. And then this past fall, we asked you to come and be our Monday morning keynote at Cals 24 in Northwest Arkansas. So I'd love to hear more about your impressions and takeaways from your very first Cals experience.
Well, it's the only time in my life, might be the only time ever, that I follow the CEO of Walmart. So Doug McMillan spoke the night before, and I really am grateful that there was a significant night between, that everybody went to sleep, woke up, there was a new day, because he was fantastic. Hunter, is it Yurachek, the AD at Arkansas that interviewed him? They did a fantastic job. But yeah, waking up that morning, it was a blast for me. I mean, it was a great experience. I've known Will I've known you a little bit longer than Will, but through you have met Will Reese, and Will is just he is just exactly who he is at all times, and it's what makes him such a magnetic personality, because he's the real deal. But getting to see that, I'd heard you all talk about the conference for years, but getting to see it, it's just I think it's it's a little bit like an American dream kind of story of somebody just saying, hey, me and my dad basically are gonna duct tape this thing together. And then now it's become such a crucial part, such a crucial piece of the fabric of college athletics in so many different ways. And so that was probably the best part about it, was just getting to see all of the hard work from you and Will and so many others continue to come to fruition.
Yeah, we've had some great endorsements of Cals while doing this podcast, but Cals as the American dream, that's a next level. No pun intended.
You know it better than I do, but because you saw, man, you all decided to do this thing and you just did it. How many were at the first one? Maybe 20? Yeah,
it never gets old to tell the story of, the humble beginnings of this event and what Will and his family have created from something that started as a one-off event, or what we expected to be a one-off event of 30 to 40 people in Tulsa, close to 15 years ago now. It's never lost on me stepping into that dinner on Sunday night or into that ballroom on Monday morning and seeing all the people there and all the ADs who fly in from across the country to be a part of it when they don't have to, and they're not getting rich being a part of it. It just speaks volumes about Will and who he is. It also speaks volumes about the community and the collegiality among the ADs and the aspiring administrators within the CALS community, that they'll take time out of their really, really busy schedules to come and be together and be a part of this thing.
It kind of helped me see how small the world is of college athletics. I mean, it's amazing how many of you all know each other, because I'll be like, oh, well, how do you know him? Oh, well, we worked together at this school, and then he ended up going to this school and I went to this school, but then we ended up back at the same place 8 years later. And there's so much of that. It's a real web of connection. Little Kevin Bacon, everybody's connected in some way to
That's
it.
right. I don't think you need 7 degrees to get from being in the CALS community. It's probably no more than 2 or 3. All right, I mentioned off the top, we're calling this segment the Leadership Playbook. This is a new segment for the CALS Report podcast. You mentioned your first book, which you said was modestly successful. You were being modest. It's been very successful. It's called How to Lead When You're Not in Charge, in bookstores everywhere that you pick up books today. I think it's a really relevant topic for the CALS audience, this idea of how to lead when you lack authority. Tell us about the inspiration for that book, and how does that message resonate with leaders in the high-pressure world of college athletics?
Yeah, that's kind of you to say that it is relevant to everyone, particularly people that would listen to this podcast. But I didn't know that at first. I mean, I was just writing it. I'll tell you, if you want to experience sincere depression, go read some Amazon reviews from a book that you poured a lot of heart and soul into, because people, it has a lot of reviews on Amazon, which is wonderful, but there are a lot of 1-star reviews. And some of the negative ones would say, this guy's just writing his memoir, which honestly, when I read that, I thought that's not altogether untrue. I mean, I really I was writing about my own experience in leadership. And so it's always, it's a bit surprising when you realize, oh, my experience is not unique to me, that my experience is actually really relevant to every person in every organization at every level. The illustration I like to use, Ryan, to explain it is, those little grocery carts at the grocery store that are shaped like a car. When our kids were young, loved putting them in that seat, and they loved the feeling of driving that car, because I would try to be the fun dad, and they'd turn the wheel to the left, and I would turn the cart to the left and to the right, and I'd turn to the right. And eventually, though, we'd have to get our shopping done, and so I'd be pushing the cart straight over to the produce. They would see the candy aisle, and they would frantically start turning the wheel, but the cart wouldn't move. It would just keep going straight. And they would look up at me with this look of, disillusionment or a look of disappointment. And there was a day where it hit me. That is what I feel like at work. I feel like they have given me this steering wheel and said, drive. They've given me a job title. They've given me, a bit of authority. They've certainly given me some responsibility. And they said, go for it. And so I go, all right, well, I've got ideas. I've got thoughts. I've got opinions about how things should be. And so I'll start turning the wheel to the left, but the cart will just keep moving straight. And I've had plenty of moments where I've looked up at my bosses going, you lied to me. You told me this thing worked, but it actually doesn't. So what I try to do in that book is really just say, look, the steering wheel does work. So they did not lie to you, but the lie the myth that all of us eventually have to break away from is that it works. The steering wheel works only through power, only through title, only through authority. And that's just not true, because we know plenty of people who were not in charge and changed the world. We know plenty of people who were in charge and weren't leading that well, that ultimately that steering wheel, it works through cultivating and then learning how to leverage influence whenever you feel like you lack authority. I call it authority deprivation, which everyone knows that feeling of, man, if they would just put that department under me, then I could really get something done. And if you're waiting on that, it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah. Now, I know that probably every AD at every major university in the country is hanging on every word of this podcast, but a lot of the Cal's audience are those emerging leaders, those assistant associate, maybe senior associate ADs that are working their way up the hierarchy of the athletic department. So building on what you just explained, how can individuals who are in that situation, who maybe lack that authority, how can they grow their influence if they feel like maybe they're in a position where they're limited by that bureaucracy or that lack of authority?
Well, the question is such an important question. So I would start with the question, and they certainly don't need me to answer that question. I would encourage anybody who's asking that question to spend some time, make yourself answer it. Right? What do you do that cultivates influence for you, and what do you do that is costing you influence? Influence is it's like a currency, right? It's like a bank account. You're always either accruing influence or you're spending it or you're losing it in some way. And so I think asking yourself the question, spending some real quality time doing some introspection and doing some self-assessment, or think of it as an auditing process, auditing your own behavior, auditing your own situation. What have I done? What am I doing that's cultivating me more influence? But the book is really centered around these 4 big behaviors that I give, because that's really how I bumped into this. Was I was just doing this in my own life, trying to figure out, all right, I've got more bosses than I know what to do with. I got a couple of promotions and I had more power than I'd ever had, but it was still not enough. And so what do I need to do to continue to cultivate influence so that I can move the things I think need to be moved and create the things that need to be created and move things forward? The 4 big behaviors I give are, I've got to lead myself. I've got to lead me. I've got to choose positivity. I've got to think critically, and I've got to reject passivity. So the first 3 are something you have to do. You got to lead yourself. You got to show up with a sense of positivity, a sense of hope, a sense of belief that things can get better, particularly when you don't even agree with the idea or agree with the decision. And then you got to show up certainly with some thoughts, some ideas, some critical thinking on how you're going to improve things. And then the last one's something you've got to reject. But passivity wants to get in you, and you've got to be vigilant on making sure that you do not become passive. Because when you're in charge, you have this sense of control that you don't actually have, but it's a sense of control. And vice versa, when you're not in charge, you feel like, well, I don't have any control. I'm out of control. So I just got to wait. I got to be passive until I get to be in charge. And that's really, really dangerous to do, because great leaders are anything but passive, certainly.
So let's talk to those who are in charge, those ADs or maybe senior associate or deputy ADs that have a staff that they oversee. How can the folks who are in those chairs develop a culture of leadership within their athletic departments where they inspire their coaches, their staff, their student athletes even to lead themselves well, to do some of those things that you mentioned?
I'll tell 2 quick, one story from my own life situation and then one from the illustrious series Game of Thrones. From my own life, when I was probably 21, I was at Georgia Tech. I struggled. I mean, my GPA was always a mess, and I was trying to find an easy A. I found this internship at the state capitol. 6 hours. You just showed up for your job, and they give you 6 hours of a 4.0. So it was like one of those Costco things. Like, how many can I buy? Can I get 12 of these? They're like, no, just one. So I did it. I did it for a semester. Worked in the governor's office in the state of Georgia. My desk sat right outside of the conference room where they made a lot of decisions. And this one particular day, there's a lot of yelling, arguing, and I hear someone banging the table just. And then this voice yells above everybody, I am the governor of the state of Georgia. You will listen to me. I was 21 years old, and I remember thinking, that's not it. Whatever that is not great leadership. I call that the weapon of authority, right? Waving the weapon around. I'm in charge. You're going to do what I tell you to do. Game of Thrones. There was a scene where the old wise sage, they're sitting around the round table, and the wise sage says, anyone who has to tell everyone he's the king is no king at all. And I remember thinking, now that summarizes what I've been trying to say in so much of a better way. But that's the idea, is that if you think that the way to lead is to wave the gun of authority around, you're missing it, right? In fact, I would say you got to look back on your own life. Somewhere you have missed it for sure, because the way you lead when you're in charge is the way you learned how to lead when you weren't in charge. And I usually, when I'm standing in front of an audience, I'll ask them, I'll say, hey, so the weapon of authority, you wave it around, I'm in charge, do what I tell you to do. Does it work? And usually people go, no, it doesn't work. And then someone, it happens almost every time. Someone will go, it works in the short term. And that is the truth. It does. It works in the short term. Because if your boss emailed you while you're listening to this podcast today or texted you and said, get your TPS reports by the end of the day or you're fired, you'd get them done, right? You would respond to the authority, but you would also, if it happened over and over again, you would, start updating your password on LinkedIn and updating your resume so that you can find a new job, because we don't want to work for people who wave power around like that. We want to work for men and women who have cultivated influence. And though they have the authority, they're leveraging their influence and not leveraging their authority. But the only way you learn how to do that is by learning how to lead when you're not in charge. So I would encourage ADs, senior deputy ADs, whatever position you find yourself in, if you have a bit of authority, be really careful not to leverage that authority as power, right? People don't want to work for someone like that. Maybe there are moments when you have to do that. But for the most part, make it a practice, make it a habit to lead by leveraging the influence that you learn how to leverage when you weren't in charge. And if you're not in charge, it's a great message for all of us to go, hey, the season that you're in, though it may be frustrating that you lack authority, it's really essential to learning how to become a leader. Because if you can learn how to lead when you're not in charge, you'll be that much of a better leader when you are in charge. And wherever seat you're in, you're probably going to have more authority someday than you do right now. And so learn how to be a better leader where you are, and it'll help you in the long run.
It's really good. You talked at the beginning of our conversation about one of the things you really like about sports is there's a scoreboard, and it's a very results-oriented business. We also know it's a really complex business right now. There are so many issues that athletic administrators are facing. What would your words of advice be to an AD who is grappling with, hey, we've got to get the results. We've got to put these teams in position to win. We've got all these external issues that we're facing right now that are pressing down upon the industry. And yet we know culture is important. We know developing the people in our organization is important. How do we balance those things and make sure that the former does not cannibalize the latter?
Yeah, it is incredibly complex. I can't imagine trying to lead in an environment where things are so unsteady and uncertain. It kind of reminds me of what it felt like in 2020, right? Where I remember someone saying, during COVID, there were really only 3 days of the week. And when they first said it, I was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, oh, because people weren't working Monday and Friday. Is that what you mean? No. There was yesterday, there was today, and there was tomorrow, right? Because things were changing so rapidly. You would make a decision today, you would execute it tomorrow, and then things would change the next day, right? That's just the way the landscape was. So I think we got to go back to that season with some of the principles that we learned. I think learning how to communicate in a world where you have to be clear about what you're doing right now, but you also have to keep your hands open, remain open-handed for what might change in the future. Learning how to deal with change, learning how to accept change, move people toward change, identify change has never been a more essential skill than it is right now in college athletics because there is so much change. And then, yes, your people, I would just say that's probably going to be the thing that you end up maybe sacrificing is the development of your people. That's always a tension, though, is do I develop the people? And if I develop them, what happens? They might leave and become an AD somewhere else. I like that, that old adage, well, what about if you don't develop them? Like, what's going to happen? They're going to stay and just flounder and be mediocre? No. Spend some energy and effort. I believe our best play in retaining people is showing the people that work on our team, I believe in you as a person, and I'm going to spend intentional time investing in you. And if that's the case, I think you just have a better shot of them sticking around because people want to be in environments where people are helping them out, helping them grow as humans, whether they leave or not. And so, yes, it is difficult, but it doesn't mean it's impossible. There's a lot of industries that are difficult. There's a lot of times in our life, seasons in our life where change has been prevalent, but it is certainly as challenging now, I would imagine, as it's ever been.
Let's pivot back to those emerging leaders. If they're facing some conflict or some resistance, let's say they have some good ideas or they feel like they have more capacity than the folks above them are seeing in them right now. what would you tell them in terms of how they navigate that and try to put themselves in position to have more influence over those stakeholders and decision makers?
Do you, Brian, I know you're not native to Alabama, but you've been there long enough. Are you familiar with that music studio that's in Muscle Shoals? There was a documentary about it on Netflix. Have you heard anything about this?
I know a little bit. Yep.
It's Fame Studios. It's kind of bizarre because, I mean, what is Muscle Shoals, Alabama? It is a small town. There's not a whole lot there. Alabama's certainly not known as a hotbed of recording musical talent.
Home of Mark Sears.
Home of Alabama All-American Mark Sears. That's right. But some of the greatest bands, some of the greatest artists in the world have recorded at Fame Studios in Muscle Shoals. And I remember when I watched that documentary, I was so fascinated with how does this happen? How does a little town, this little no-name studio in the middle of nowhere become a place that's coveted, from the Beatles to the Rolling Stones to Lionel Richie to Carrie Underwood to, I mean, you name it, they've all been there, recorded music there. I think the answer for me, or the encouragement for any, middle level or even lower level AD, is you watch that documentary and you just think, hey, they were doing great work when no one knew they were there, and eventually people found out. And I would just encourage anyone, the hardest times in life, the most important times of development in life, kind of like the way we used to develop photography, we would develop pictures. We don't develop it in a room full of light. We develop it in a dark room. And in the same way, the development happens in those seasons where people don't know you're there, where you're having to work extra hard, where you're having to really question your own motives. Why am I doing this? Am I doing this to get credit? Am I doing this to get attention? Or am I doing this because I care deeply about student athletes? I care deeply about improving the quality of life in the community that I live in. So I just would encourage you, just because it's hard, just because people don't know you're there, just because people don't recognize the work you're doing, doesn't mean that it's not a season where you can learn and grow. In fact, it's the opposite. It might be the best season to learn and grow, because that's where things really develop, is in some of those really dark times. And so I would just encourage you, keep doing the hard work, keep putting in the time, keep putting in the effort. Eventually, you will get noticed. Eventually, somebody will see the kind of work that you're doing. And who knows, eventually, maybe the Rolling Stones, maybe Mick himself will call and say, hey, I want to do my album at your studio.
I love it. All right. It's a new year, new me, right? So
that's right.
The season of New Year's resolutions. That first pillar that you mentioned of the 4 pillars was
leading yourself
well. So before we get you out of here today, would love for you to give our audience some practical steps on how you can learn and implement strategies to lead yourself well.
I think the best place any of us can start on leading yourself well is trying to grow in your self-awareness. You can't get to where you want to be until you know exactly where you are. So you probably have a vision for your career. Hopefully you do. You have some sense of accountability and discipline to be able to get the things done that you know you need to get done. But the place that all of us can grow in is our self-awareness. So I would encourage you, spend some time this year trying to grow in your self-awareness. And the simplest way to do that, it's not easy, but the simplest way to do it is to ask other people, to be tenacious this year about getting feedback as to where you are. You should have a PhD, not the playa haters degree, but a PhD in yourself, understanding your strengths, your weaknesses, your proclivities, your hangups, the way the room feels, the way you change the climate in the room, the way people experience you in meetings. Spend some time getting to know, grow in your self-awareness, and I think it'll help you formulate a plan on how you can grow. But it really does start. The foundation for every virtue is self-awareness. And so any growth begins with a greater sense of self-awareness. I would encourage any leader, no matter what level they're in, you can always grow in your self-awareness. Get more aware of exactly where you are. And I think it'll help put the roadmap together as to how to grow this year.
It's a great challenge for all of us. Clay, really grateful for the time today. I know we only scratched the surface of the goods that you can deliver to our audience. So I hope you'll consider coming back and being part of our program again in the not too distant future. Again, grateful for you engaging with us, not only on this podcast, but with the Cows audience in different forums. And again, just appreciate all that you bring to us and to this Cows community.
Listen, when Will Reese, when Ryan Bradley says, hey, we got something we need you to do, the answer is always yes. So clay.scroggins@gmail.com. That's my email address. If I can do anything to serve you, it is my purpose on earth to serve leaders like yourself and listeners of CALS. So the CALS report. So thank you for the invitation. The answer is always yes.
Awesome. Appreciate you, Clay.
See you.
Thank you for tuning into episode 5 of the CALS Report. It's been a privilege to hear from Jeramiah DIckey and Graham Rossini about their groundbreaking journeys in the inaugural 12-team college football playoff. Their leadership lessons and behind-the-scenes strategies are invaluable as we navigate the evolving world of college athletics. We're also thrilled to have launched a leadership playbook. Thanks to Ryan Bradley and Clay Scroggins for giving us insights on leading when you're not in charge and how to start out 25 strong. I was also excited to announce the date for our next CALS One Day event, June 18th at George Washington University. Be sure to visit our website for more details and to secure your spot. A big thank you to my great friend Ryan Bradley for steering this impactful episode and to our loyal listeners for continuing to make the CALS Report a success. Your support inspires us to keep creating content that educates, connects, and uplifts the college sports community. Don't forget to subscribe to the CALS Report on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Stay connected with us on LinkedIn and Instagram at the CALS Report and on Twitter at AD Symposium for updates. For more information about CALS or to reach out, visit us at www.adsymposium.us. I'm Will Reese, and this has been the CALS Report. Until next time, stay connected and keep leading the way in college athletics.